So it was getting dusk. We had a slick to pick them up. So, of course, their VC was shooting stuff. So I ended up turning on my lights to attract fire, and the slick went in and got him. And that's when I took a bullet in the chin bubble that went right between the two pilots, ended up in the radio console.
How you doing, sir?
Great, great.
Thank you for being here. Let's just start off. We're going to just start it off with, why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us your name, branch of service you served with, and the rank you got out as.
Okay. I'm OC Fowler, Orman C, or Orman Craig Fowler Jr., go by OC, Commander, U.S. Navy, retired. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas in 1944 at the Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi, Texas, where my father was a naval flight instructor. So I moved all over the U.S. And we ended up in San Diego in 1952. And he was attached to a Navy patrol squadron. It was a seaplane squadron, P-5Ms. And they ended up deploying to the Philippines, and they were patrolling the Taiwan Straits, or Formosa Straits at that time, looking for ships going into North Korea and the Korean War. They were turned over all the aircraft to the incoming squadron, and he volunteered to go out on a orientation flight and show them everything about the area and the procedures and rules of engagement and all that kind of stuff. Shortly after takeoff, they lost the left engine, caught on fire. The plane was heavy, it was underpowered to start with, so they crashed and it broke apart on the third bounce. 10 of the 15 were killed, including my father. So my mother was widowed with 5 kids in San Diego, and she eventually she loved the Navy. She eventually went to work at Balboa Naval Hospital, San Diego, as a volunteer Red Cross worker looking for a husband. And she found a bachelor doctor with enough guts to marry a widow with 5 kids. It worked out great. So we still were in the Navy. I managed to stay in San Diego. He would go from sea duty to shore duty and so forth. As a doctor, it was easier for him to do. Of course, I was trying to get in the Navy. I was Navy family. My father was a Navy pilot, so that's what I wanted to do. And so I was accepted into Navy flight training, and it was like going home because my folks were in Pensacola already ahead of me. Wow. So I went through.
How old were you at that time?
Well, I was 23. Yep.
Okay.
So it took me 5 years to get through college. I changed my majors once. Ended up with a BS in zoology. I didn't dare swap majors again because the draft would have got me for sure. So the last 2 years of college, every semester I sent the draft board a little letter saying I'm still in college, I'm taking a full load, and I'm on track to graduate this time here. So I wasn't taking chances. In fact, I had to have a backup plan for the Navy because I was waiting for the Navy to pick me up. If they didn't pick me up, I'd end up in the draft. So I went to the Army recruiters, and I went through and did everything, was accepted, qualified for the Army aviation. And the recruiter said when I got back to San Diego, I said, well, we just paid for you to go to Los Angeles and blah, 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 and you need to come and sign up. And I said, no, I don't. If the draft board would have got me, then I would have been down there. But the Navy came through. I got my draft notice after I was already in Pensacola. So from Pensacola, oh, this is a good story. My father gave all the physicals to the SEA commanding officers of the squadrons at NAS Pensacola, Jet Training Squadron. And my brother-in-law was about a year and a half ahead of me, a year ahead of me in flight training. He was going to Vietnam, so he was going to go through UH-1 gunship transition at Fort Benning. So my dad said, why don't we go up and visit Whit, my brother-in-law? And so they went, and I got one ejection seat shot up in the ejection seat so I could go on a jet. And I was in the back seat of a T-2 jet, and my dad was in the back seat of the other one, and we flew to Fort Benning. And the instructors at Fort Benning put me in a helo gunship, and I got to make some rocket and machine gun runs and so forth. So that sold me on going to fly helicopters. So I ended up going helos by choice. My first duty station, got my wings in January of '69. My first duty station was 1 year in Adak, Alaska, on the Aleutian Islands, 1,300 miles from Anchorage. I was a SAR pilot flying the single-engine H-2 Sea Sprite. We did not venture off the island unless there was emergency, because if you lost that one engine and you went in the water, there wasn't anybody to come and get you. So they did do a rescue a couple of years before off of a freighter or something, but we didn't venture off. We did all of our flying right over the island. And there was no main gate, there was no civilian town, it was just a base. But it was a great tour for me because I was in charge of 3 to 4 different divisions, which put me working with enlisted, senior enlisted, and so forth, where if you went to a normal squadron, you'd probably be the first lieutenant or something. Well, I had power plants, airframes, ground support equipment, and a whole bunch of stuff. So it was a great tour for a junior officer. They sent me to a 6-week aviation maintenance analysis course before I went there, so I was also the quality control officer. And from there, that was a year tour. Volunteered to go to Vietnam, Helicopter Attack Light Squadron 3, part of the Brownwater Navy Task Force 116, which included my squadron, which the Seawolves, the patrol riverboats, and SEALs. They also had a Black Pony squadron which flew OV-10s. So they could carry heavier ordnance than we could, but we were down nice and close. So I was there for a year, about 650 missions. You know, it didn't take long to have a mission. We'd be firing rockets 5 minutes after takeoff.
Really?
Yeah, and then you'd rearm, do it again. So each one of those is a mission.
Do you recall the first mission that you went on?
Yeah, my first 2 months on there, I was in aviation maintenance just because I had that in my background from ADAC. So I was assistant flight line maintenance check flight line pilot, and when they did an engine change or transmission change or rotors stuff, so I learned how to do all that kind of stuff. But then I went out to they had 9 detachments around the Delta, and I went to Det 8, which was in Rockjaw in the Gulf of Thailand. And the third night on detachment, we had a radio that the patrol riverboats, they set up night ambushes, and our radio was keyed, so if the boats keyed their mic, we could hear the click. And we were half dressed. We had our flight suits around our waist. We had zip-up boots. We'd be in the air in less than 2 minutes. All the switches and all were set up to get in the air. So the third night on detachment, we heard the click, the PBRs, and they'd whisper to each other. They'd always be a pair, at least a pair, because at night on the water, sound really travels a long ways, so they'd be whispering. Do you think we need to call the Seawolves yet? And of course, by that time, we're getting ready. And so we took off, and when we got there, and I said, what did I get myself into? I mean, tracers, red tracers, the green tracers, they were flying everywhere because the boats were shooting at the bank. Bullets can't go over the bank. Bad guys shooting down at the boats. But we could come in right along the canal or river, and from above and just I controlled the left minigun on the left pod, and I just bzzz, right down the canal. And of course, we put a stop to that. And then we followed up. There was another ambush set up by the SEALs that night, and a SEAL lieutenant got shot right in the rear end, and so our fire team leader, he went and put his skids on the sampan they were in, and picked the guy up. And of course, we were flying overhead. So that first night was an eye-opener for me. Everybody, all 4 crewmen between the 2 ships, and all the pilots got distinguished flying crosses that night for the action that was going on. I mean, it was heavy-duty bullets flying everywhere. So
yeah.
So that was I was the new guy. And later on, I made helicopter aircraft commander, and then I was a fire team leader. I ended up with 2 distinguished flying crosses, 3 single action air medals, and 27 strike flight air medals.
Oh, wow.
In addition to a couple of the Vietnamese Air Gallantry Cross and Cross of Gallantry. So.
Oh, wow.
So.
650 missions.
Well, yeah, but you have to think about short missions too.
Right.
I mean, we could take off and literally 5 minutes in the air, we could be shooting rockets and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
How often did you out of all those missions, how often did you see action? Was it every time you guys went out? Or?
Well, we had free fire zones too. Mm-hmm. So we could go out after 1800, and if there was a free fire zone, we could just, like we had nails or the rockets that had the projectiles in them, and it's like a shotgun. You could cover a wide area. So if you had a free fire zone, you could go and lay a bunch of those in. And one time, a probable kill supposedly was up over 150, but it's hard. They needed the numbers, so I'm not sure if we hit anybody or not. But for the higher ups back then, they wanted numbers. So, but anyway, we did. So free fire zones where you could go out at night and start shooting up the countryside, because anybody that was in there was deemed enemy. And got shot down once. One of the air medals, just coming off a rocket run, 1,300 feet, the whole cockpit lit up. I said, holy moly. We lost main transmission oil pressure, which gives you 2 to 3 minutes. Wow. And luckily, I'd rather be lucky than good sometimes. So we were up at altitude then, so we were able to glide across the river and put it in a rice paddy, power on at the end into the rice paddy. I have pictures of us in the rice paddy. The SEALs came out and surrounded us because we always worked with the SEALs. Our other bird was overhead, and so that's one time I got shot down.
Wow.
So like I said, I'd rather be lucky.
Right.
If we had been at a low altitude when all that happened, and we would have to pull power to get out of there. We didn't want to obviously sit down right there because the bad guys would be there. Mm-hmm. So we would have to pull power and take our chances and at least get over to the river and put it down in the water or something.
Wow.
So when you're being at altitude really saved us. The other time my aircraft was hit was we were extracting seals. And the seals only go in, usually it's a small 5 or 6 guys max usually. And so it was getting dusk, and they needed to get out of there because at nighttime, that's when the VC, bad guys, would come out. And so it was getting dusk. We had a slick to pick them up. So, of course, their VC was shooting stuff, so I ended up turning on my lights to attract fire, and the slick went in and got them, and that's when I took a bullet, and the chin bubble that went right between the 2 pilots ended up in the radio console.
Cool.
So those are the 2 times I was hit.
Wow. Did that do anything to the
No, we didn't even know it. They found, when you're in something like that, we took it back to the Ventui, which is our headquarters, and the maintenance guys say, you can't fly this until we go over the whole thing. And then that's when they found the bullet hole that went up in the radio console, but all the radios and everything were working. So.
Wow. You had no idea.
No. Well, we had no idea. We thought it was a maintenance failure when we had to do the forced landing because of the transmission pressure. It was in 2014 when the other pilot was at one of our reunions that they're talking to the crewman, maintenance guys and stuff. He said, "Oh, you were shot down." And I could have been telling that sea story for the whole 40 years.
Yeah. Wow. Now, while you were up there flying any of these missions, did anybody ever get hit up there in the helo?
Not in my helo. I had another guy that was a good friend of mine. He was flying at night. We did a lot of flying at night because that's when the bad guys were out and that's when the ambushes were set up. But one of his crewmen was killed when a round hit one of the rockets, and it blew up the rockets and basically took the guy's head apart and all that. It was a mess. But
I'm curious, what's going through your mind before, you get shot down? I imagine you still have to go back out on missions, right? You get hit again.
Well, you're young and stupid too. No, I never thought I'd get hit, but you look back on it now and say, what was I doing?
Right, yeah. So is it just something that you were just busy, like, hey, this is our mission,
Yeah, it's a mission. You want to, there are times you could have shot places up where there are bunches of civilians in there and you didn't want to do that. We didn't want to have a, Lieutenant Calley type situation where a bunch of civilians were killed, and we didn't want to do that, obviously. But even I had a crewman, my other DFC, I had a crewman get the Navy Cross. And what happened was we were patrolling. The Army was sending LCMs, I believe they were, down into the UMN force, and they are being escorted by Navy patrol boats, river patrol boats. And bad guys blew up one of the LCMs, of course, 9,000 gallons of JP5 aviation fuel. And of course the cloud and everything went a couple thousand feet in the air, and we were like probably 1,500 anyway. Saw all that, and of course there wasn't anything we could do. My guys kept saying, we need to shoot, we need to shoot. Who are you going to shoot? The canal bank is loaded with civilians. We can't go, and we didn't see anybody to shoot. And of course, there were trees and all that kind of stuff, so we didn't shoot. Now, I did do one thing, because the pressure was on. I picked out I gave some coordinates and got permission to fire into some coordinates, a bunch of trees and stuff, away from the canal. And the reason I did that was to take some of the energy away from my crew and everybody that wanted to shoot something. So that worked out. Then they spotted an Army guy on the bank that had been blown there off the boat that was blown up.
Wow.
So we ended up going down, and in the meantime, the PBRs were down on the river, and they didn't know if they were going to get blown up. So they went back to back. They were just mowing down everything with 50 calibers and stuff because they didn't know where the bad guys were or if there were any. So somebody blew that thing up. So anyway, we spotted this guy on the bank, one of my crewmen did, and so I went down and on the canal, and I was hovering with inches, my skids inches from the water. It ended up, without me telling him to do it, my young crewman jumped in the water and went ashore, got the guy in a sampan. We tried to get him in the helo, but he was burned badly, and just tried to pull him in, and his skin just peeled off. But we ended up getting back to the hospital, and which he passed away from all his burns and stuff. He was, 9,000 gallons of JP and blown him. So. But that was a mess. But my crewman did get the Navy Cross for his effort and getting the guy back and we're getting him to the hospital and so forth. He eventually died of brain cancer from Agent Orange, the crewman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, another one of the guys, pilots that was on detachment. He made Rear Admiral, and he was in charge of down at NAS Jacksonville and the whole area. He died of brain cancer, Agent Orange. So it was a huge deal. But so I went from July of 70 to July of 71 and got orders from there back to San Diego where I grew up, which was pretty cool. And to actually HC-5, which is Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 5, and which changed into HSL-31, Helicopter Anti-Submarine Squadron Light 31, which flying the H-2s like I had in ADAC, but these were twin-engine H-2s now. So they added a second engine, more power, reliability, and all that stuff. But they put some anti-submarine warfare stuff. You launched sonobuoys off that could listen for submarines and ping, too, for submarines. And then they had a magnetic anomaly detector you would string out behind you. And magnetic anomaly detectors will detect any large magnetic disturbance in the water like a submarine. So normally you're going along straight on this thing and all of a sudden you get a bip, a bleep or whatever, and well, there's something down there, we better investigate. So that might drop some sonobuoys on that. So I was a flight instructor there.
Wow.
And took a detachment out on the USS Nimitz, which is would be classified as an oceanographic research ship, as painted white. And our mission was to map the ocean floor off the coast tip of Korea. Of course, you're making maps for who would use maps of the ocean's floor? Well, I guess submarines would, and other ships can use them too. But so our mission, flying an H-2, was basically to set up radio transmitting sites on mountaintops. So this is before GPS and all that kind of stuff. So what you do is you have a crew on one mountaintop, set up their radio transmitter, then another one over here, another mountaintop, and then the ship could triangulate off of those, and they'd get within a couple of feet of where they were. Of course, then they have sonars mapping the ocean's floor, and that's how they would make their maps.
Oh, wow.
So while we had one little adventure, there was there was a troop ship coming back from Vietnam with Korean soldiers, and one of them had a medical emergency. Well, we were the only helicopter asset around, so we got tasked with picking up this Korean soldier off the troop ship, and they didn't have a landing pad, so we have pictures they were taking lots of pictures of us from the bridge of the ship, off the bow, lower the hook, and they had a litter basket to pick the guy up, and it shows picking him up and stuff like that. So that was the only real adventure there. But,
what did it feel like getting back to San Diego, after being in Nam for a year?
It was a party city.
Yeah.
I met a guy that he spent my first 2 years was ADAC in Vietnam. His first 2 years was the SAR pilot in Key West, Florida. A little bit different.
Yeah.
But we got along great. We ended up rooming together and bought a house together in San Diego and stuff like that. He's up in Washington right now. So it was great. I still had lots of college friends and even back to high school friends.
Oh, wow.
I was in the Navy for 22 and a half years.
Oh, wow.
So I retired from the Navy.
Okay, nice.
So from San Diego, I was 2 years there. I was orders to Pensacola, back to Pensacola. I was a fixed-wing flight instructor. So I have about 3,300 hours of flight time, and about 1/3 of that is in fixed-wing, small fixed-wing. My first helicopter in flight training was the OH-13, like the one they flew in the series MASH series, that little bubble helicopter.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the big one you flew was the H-34, which Navy used for anti-submarine warfare, and Marines for troop insertion. So it's a big old ugly thing, 3 wheels and high cockpit. It's a reciprocating engine, not a jet engine. So, but Marines had them. Everybody, I think probably everybody had them. But,
so a little over 22 years. What was your favorite duty station?
I think I love the Southeast, so it'd be split between Pensacola. I lived on the beach in Pensacola.
Oh, nice.
So that that was great. I kept the volleyball. So. And then, but NAS Jax, 2 tours at NAS Jax. One in the I was a flight instructor. Well, let's go through Pensacola first. So I was a flight instructor, assistant maintenance officer, standardization pilot. I was a second senior 03 lieutenant, and and I was a maintenance check pilot again. So I've been heavy in maintenance, aviation maintenance, my whole time. So I could take aircraft on a post maintenance check flight by myself, which meant you didn't have any students with you. You just go up, and once you figured out everything was okay, then you could do acrobatics and play around and have some fun. So that was great. And that's where I met my wife, was in Pensacola.
Oh.
And I had just, when I was transferred from San Diego to Pensacola, I towed my 64 GTO with my, I would call it a hippie van. So I had a van. If you're partying, you could sleep in it and all that kind of stuff. So, so the ladies in Pensacola did not understand a hippie van, because California always starts a bunch of stuff and it kind of goes east. So I traded in the van on a Corvette. Everybody understood Corvettes, so a Navy pilot had to have a Corvette. So I had that, and the day I traded it in and bought the Corvette, I was down partying, and that's when I met my wife. So I should have kept the van.
You met her in Pensacola?
Yeah.
Was she in the military? Or?
No, she was. She had been separated, married to another Navy pilot at the time. So it all worked out. Been married for 46 years. So,
wow.
So.
Till this day, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So from Pensacola, where'd you go from there?
Let me tell one story about. I was a standardization pilot, and we had foreign students, and there was this one Iranian flight student that nobody would release on a solo flight. So they gave him to me, and I took him out, and usually maybe you do about 8 touch and goes, approaches and stuff like that. Well, we did 26 approaches. So, I figured out this guy knew when to, if he saw that, he knew when his approach was bad and would wave off, which is good, because that means he could realize he was safe. So I ended up said, okay, Lana, let's pull over here. And I'm getting out, and he looked at me. His eyes were as big as saucers. That's all yours, buddy. So he went up and did his couple of touch and goes and stuff like that, and so he's safe for solo, and he did his solo thing.
Nice.
So that was part of the thing, getting guys to solo and seeing them learn how to fly and everything, that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
So from Pensacola, I went to get orders to NAS Jacksonville in helicopter anti-submarine squadron, actually 9, but they needed somebody, and I made 04 right there. So They needed a lieutenant commander over in HS3. So they sent me to HS3 via Naval Aviation Safety School in Monterey, which is 6 weeks. That was a good deal. And but when I got back, and they said, you know, we think your personality would be good for the maintenance department head instead of safety. So after I was there for a little. So again, I was in aviation maintenance. It followed me. So I was the aircraft maintenance department head.
Yeah.
So about 100 people. Even in San Diego, I had an aircraft division, which was over 100 people. So I was always in aviation maintenance. In Pensacola, I was aviation maintenance. So we went out, learned to fly the H-3 ASW aircraft. And it can launch torpedoes. Well, the H-2 could launch torpedoes too, but sonobuoys, magnetic anomaly detector again, all that good stuff. And we went out in cruise of 78 and 9, and I was in plane guard. I don't know if you know what plane guard is, but
I don't.
Okay, the carrier's here, and of course they're landing like this onto the carrier, and plane guard is over, just doing ovals over here on the starboard side of the carrier in case somebody ejects, goes in the water, or anything like that. So it was getting dusk, and it's always easier to pick up somebody out of the water or anywhere if it's light. So once it gets dark, it changes the whole dynamics. So normally the H-3 cruise is about 120 knots, and I bumped it up to 150 so we could get out there and get them before it got dark. And we did. We had them. There was an article in the NAS Jacksonville paper that I had them back on the flight deck in less than an hour.
Wow.
So everything worked out perfectly, except, of course, the plane was long gone. That exchange pilot, he was gone on the first plane out of there, off the ship, because
wow.
I don't know how you do that. You have to have a switch on and pickle it off or something. So yeah. So anyway, so
is that where you got one of your medals from? That?
No, I didn't get any medal. I didn't get a medal from sort of. I'm not going to say angry or something, but a little miffed once in a while when I think about it, because I picked those guys out of the water. I did a medical evac from the USS NS Harkness, was a sister ship of the Chatham, so I was familiar with the flight deck and everything, but it really wasn't made for an H-3, but I knew the ship, so I could make it work. And then I ended up, my maintenance department was the best. It was the best H-3 maintenance department on the East Coast, and we had 0 defects. Our last corrosion control inspection, which is big for when you go to sea, the salt air and all that. So that's what you're always. So we won all the awards because and that gives you high aircraft availability, and so we ended up being E winners. Excellence, the E winners on the East Coast for H-3s 2 years in a row, based on all that maintenance records.
Wow.
And my CO said, I thought about giving you a medal, but you already have a bunch. I mean, well, just keep your mouth shut,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that just makes me mad when I think about that.
Yeah, no,
So
I bet.
It's a long time ago,
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a good tour. So from there, I went to the Naval War College, Command and Staff course, and that's where was thinking about, do I want to continue doing this? Do I want to go back to an H-3 squadron? So my daughter was 12 months old. If I went back to sea and did good, probably be back at sea for 5 years or something anyway, straight. Vietnam was so exciting and your adrenaline was going all the time that nothing could ever compare to that.
Oh, I bet.
So being a flight instructor in T-34s with, those student pilots, they didn't knowingly want to kill you, but they'd be trying to do stupid stuff sometimes. So you had to keep your wits about you. So I went to Naval War College, and then I went back to the Admiral staff at NAS Jacksonville. Got picked up. I had 05 knocked, so I got picked up for 05, and went out on the. From there, I went to become I was the safety department head on the Nimitz, which was. I hadn't done that before. I hadn't been ship's company before ever. You know, I'd been a squadron or, OIC on a ship, but so that was different. I was a department head on an aircraft carrier, so I qualified as command duty officer underway, which I'm not sure the CO of the ship would ever turn me loose, but did do my bridge watches when we were doing underway replenishments. I was up there, and he was behind me, and we'd be telling them to come left, right, and all that kind of stuff, and which was cool. It was something different. I had to, for command duty officer underway, you get briefed on all the different departments, what they did, and all that kind of stuff. And especially, it's a nuclear-powered ship, so you got it's kind of a shortened tour of nuclear power plant, stuff like that, just to sort of get an idea of what was going on.
Yeah.
Wow. But that was good because I was, as a department head, of course I had my own it's a two-man room, but I had my own two-man room for me. And when you had the duty, you ran the wardroom. What else? Oh, and you did rotations. When you were going into port, one of the department heads was sent in ahead of time to set up department head admin or get a hotel room, stock it with wine and beer and cheese and all that good stuff. And so when my turn came, it was Monte Carlo. So I got to I had been there before when I was on the Forrestal, so I knew it. I knew the town. So. But that was cool. I got to go in early into Monte Carlo.
Nice. Wow.
So that was a kind of a Benny for a department head.
Where'd you retire out of?
So from the Nimitz, which is ship's company, supposed to give you a little priority on assignments. I was looking for a naval ROTC to retire from. So I love the Southeast. So there was one in Tallahassee that was the executive officer, and there's one at Savannah State here. So we chose, let's go to historic Savannah.
Wow.
And never regretted it. We still in the same house we bought in '84.
That was in '84, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
'84. Yeah, I know. It's a long time ago.
Well, no, I mean, same
You weren't
house.
even born, probably. I don't know.
I was 4 years old,
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
So '84 to '87, I was the executive officer out there, and like I said, I'm liaison for the Naval Junior ROTCs. We have 2 intercity schools plus South Effingham and Effingham County, and then Savannah State. I'm the liaison for that. I do their annual Navy League awards, and I started a scholarship program out there. In fact, because of the stuff I did when I was president of Savannah Navy League, I did it for 3 years, that I am a National Navy League on their Scroll of Honor. I have this big certificate thing because I started the scholarships out there at Savannah State. I started for the NJROTCs, a Cadet of the Month program where the cadets come to our dinners, monthly dinners. Wow. And they get a certificate. Their family comes with them too, because we really want, when the family is supporting them, that's what makes all the difference in youth. So the family gets a dinner out of it. It's at Carrie Hilliard's on the south side of Savannah. It's a great buffet, and everybody enjoys it. Their instructor comes too. He gets a free meal, and he says some words about the Cadet of the Month. So I started that program.
Nice.
Also, one of our inner-city schools, Jenkins, where one of our NJRTCs is, they have a STEM program. You familiar with STEM?
No.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. get kids interested in all that kind of stuff. So they have a STEM program. They have a robotics program where they build robots, do different things, and compete statewide and so forth. So I started a $500 grant for their robotics program. They put the Savannah Navy League on the side of the robot and all that good stuff.
Wow, awesome.
So that's why I received the award for that kind of stuff.
So, you were talking to me earlier, and a few people were telling me that you're Veteran of the Year this year, right?
I am Veteran of the Year. Veteran of the Year is based on what you have done while you're a veteran. And of course, my big thing was a Navy League, which supports active duty. But the active duty, just like when you were active duty, you're a veteran now. So all those active duty are veterans. So I'm on the board of the Vietnam Vets. I'm now on the board of American Legion Post 135. I belong to VFW 660. Like I said, I did USO stuff. Also.
And you were in the Hall of Fame. You were mentioning or something, right? What?
Yeah, the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame is based on, for Valor, it's based on my record in Vietnam. And, there are plenty of people who have done a lot more than myself, but somebody's got to put them in for it.
Right.
They're always looking for people. So Colonel Rick White, who runs the show and for the Hall of Fame, he was down at the Veterans Council about 3 years ago, and he was in the back of the room and he was talking, and I was talking to him. He said, "Yeah, we need Coast Guard and we need Navy guys." Oh, okay. So I took the challenge and we put a package together. So,
wow!
So
congratulations.
Which it was a great ceremony over there. I have my medal.
Awesome.
Yep, and a nice plaque and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
OC, I'm curious, one of the reasons why we started this project here at Urban Valor is to, raise awareness for veteran mental health, homelessness, and transitioning out. There's a big problem with those three specific pain points in the veteran community, with the ongoing war, the past decade. I'm curious, after all, that tour in Vietnam and all that stuff that you've experienced and seen, did you deal with any of those, feelings coming back home?
After my episode where my crewman got the Navy Cross, and they had to pin, a bunch of civilians were killed on that canal. And like I said, we did not shoot at the canal at all, period. But I was called in to my CO's office because they were looking for somebody to hang, I guess. And so when I started talking about, had the shakes, because it was a big deal being down there. I remember when I was hovering on the water, those boats were shooting 50 calibers, and all of a sudden I saw a 50 caliber tracer round tumbling in, as big as a football looked like, tumbling end over end, coming right at us, and I lowered the collective some more, and it went over the top of us. So that kind of stuff, it stays with you forever. And of course, then the guy's skin peeling off his arm was pulling in and stuff. Yeah. But I did not get hurt, luckily for me. Even getting shot down didn't get hurt. I drank before I went in the Navy. I drank after Vietnam. Never had a DUI.
Nice. It seems that what I hear from a lot of veterans is it's hard for them once they get out. In your case, you did 22 plus years, and you seem to submerge yourself in the veteran community with everything you're doing.
You got to keep doing things. Even when I came back from Vietnam to San Diego, I had a sister that was got married that day. And I had my dad met me at the airport in San Diego. I had a couple of day-old beard, a couple of day-old khakis on, and I had my 2 war trophy rifles over my shoulder. And he took me immediately to the North Island Naval Air Station Officers Club where the reception was going on. So not only was I going back to a Navy community, which provided all kinds of support. But I had family too, so that makes a huge difference. I wasn't spit on and that kind of stuff. But one of the reasons I joined USO and the Navy League doing active duty, because I wanted to make sure that they knew somebody out there cared about them.
That's awesome.
Now that is the main thing. Seeing those Army guys going over for a 4th or 5th tour.
Yeah.
It was huge. I mean, talked to one guy, he's going over his 4th, and she's gal next to him said, well, this is my 5th.
Yeah.
So the family, it screws up the family. That's probably one of the reasons I decided not to go back to sea when my daughter was 12 months old.
Yeah.
I'd come home, fly home on the weekends from up in Norfolk to Jacksonville, and she'd be in the back of the seat like, who are you? That kind of thing.
Right.
So.
Well, OC, we're getting ready to wrap it up.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to say before we cut the tape?
I would just like to say that the military is a great career, and even if you don't go the full way to retirement, but because they are doing service for the country, and we need to take care of all of them when they come back.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, sir. Thank you for your service, and thank you for coming here and taking the seat. It's a big contribution to what we have going on.
Okay,
so
super. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was just like Johnson High School had a thing, Vietnam veterans, and they had 3 kids there asking questions and stuff, which was pretty neat. They were learning a lot, and of course we were learning a lot too, looking at yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir, for being here. Appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more.